I don't want like more things on my plate. And she was like, you put it on your plate. Like he was getting to it. You put it on your plate because you needed it done when you wanted it done. And he was going to get to it. You just like, you made your own problem.
Welcome back to the Code Yellow podcast, where we talk about relationships from the lens of scripture and good old common sense. Remember, we're on the road to 1,000 subscribers, so please like, share, subscribe, so that all your friends and family can join us and see cool things that we talk about. Anyway, Zal, what you got for us?
It's icebreaker time. I got this ice box with my heart. Oh, sorry. My brain just goes there. Dan, I have a question for you.
Yes.
What is the weirdest gift that you've ever received?
The weirdest gift. We had a guest at our home that we didn't know very well, but we put them up for a few days just to let them stay. And when they left, he had left behind a Pathfinder shirt. Like, you know, the Pathfinder shirt with the patches. And he's from another country, but like he left behind this shirt, and I found it under the bed when we were turning back over the room, and I'm like, what is this? What is this? So I texted him, I was like, what is this for? And he said, to bless the home. Love it. Love it. But I didn't need this shirt. At all.
Devin is not a hoarder. The opposite of a hoarder. He's what is the reason?
See, I will find a reason to hoard something. I will. But I've learned that not everything needs to be kept. So fair. I was kind of like taken aback by that gift. But in a sentiment, I felt it.
Okay.
Well, I heard they switched trade patches with the whole shirt with all the patches on it. That's quite the gift.
The entire shirt.
Lord. All right, Annie.
Yes.
What is your guilty pleasure song?
Okay, so I wouldn't say song, but I'd say genre. Like I will turn on rap every so often and enjoy me some rap.
Listen to your thug music.
Yes, legit.
Juice land smoothie.
With my Stanley cup, my Stanley equivalent cup.
True millennial. Okay.
I kind of want to answer that question too, to be honest.
Go ahead.
So my guilty music is Breaking Benjamin.
What's that?
It's a hard rock, new metal type of.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So when see, Taj knows because it's like when you have that certain type of day or that certain type of week, something is just certain music at certain time is just like medicine. Or like not even medicine, but like, you know, if you ever play a video game and there's like that one thing that he drinks it and now all his health is back. That's that kind of that.
And so it's like a heavy metal?
Not heavy metal. But if somebody who's uninitiated might say, oh, this is kind of heavy, but it's really more classified as hard rock.
Hard rock.
Yeah.
Intrigued.
That's interesting.
I'm gonna check it out.
I gotta look it up. Yeah. Jasmine, what is the worst style choice that you've ever made?
The worst style choice I've ever made. Well, my feet are a little longer than most might expect for my height. And I wanted some Converse really, really badly. And if you know anything about Converse, they make the feet look a little elongated. Yep. And so I finally got my red Chucks. I wanted my red Chucks so bad. And long story short, I got them in high school and I go to college, and my bestie was going in on me at the time. She was like, yo, those make your feet look really big. And I'm like, so? No, they don't. Like, and this is the thing, I kept trying to convince myself. Like, I would look down at my feet sometimes. I'm like, they don't look that bad. Did they look long? Did they look that bad? Like, I used to do that all the time. Well, come to find out they did. So I retired them, and I've never had.
What size are you? You have little feet. I say that as a 9.5, so that's why I said that.
Taller than me. I'm 5'3". I wear size 8.5, 9.
Okay,
I've been wearing a size 8 since 6th grade. I'm proud to be who I am. This is how God made me. And so, yeah, I don't have an average size foot probably for most of the ladies. And I haven't had a pair of Converse since 2004 or 5.
Really?
Yep.
Do you guys remember the Proud Family?
Yeah.
She tried to play
like La Cienega. Okay, my feet are not that bad, but I feel La Cienega. I feel you, girl. So, yeah. But it was the red Chucks.
That's so funny. I'm gonna answer the same question, but to be fair, I'm gonna say like long jean shorts. Why I'm triggered by that is because I went to the mall this week, and I went to Cotton On, and they had like these jean shorts for like $60-$70, and I mean, I was looking at them like those are so ugly. But then I remember when I was in high school, that's like all the dudes we wore, like our Air Force Ones with long jean shorts. You couldn't tell us anything. So I mean, at the time, it was fly and in vogue and stylish, and that's just what they stole in the stores. But long jean shorts are so ugly. I mean, do you want to be shorts? Do you want to be pants? Like, do you want to be high water? Just like make it make sense.
They're not that long. High water.
Wait, long jean shorts like half?
No, they literally come to your knee.
No. They go like right here.
I'm thinking like right there.
And then in that era, people used to wear them oversized. So then they really
long. And then you wear an oversized tee.
Them, and then and then the
for sure.
Tee too. Yeah.
What an era! The early
what a time to be alive. But it's so funny how everything comes back
cycling
around.
Back. My mom used to always say that. Yeah.
Man, my dad had these skinny ties from 1975, basically. So in that time when they got real popular, he just said, I took it from him too, and I was like, okay, I'll wear it.
Yep.
Yeah.
It always comes back.
Everything comes back.
Everything comes
Bell
back.
bottoms are back. Flare.
They are. The barrel jeans, they're back.
I'm just like, what?
Wide frame glasses are back, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
They are.
Wow. And then it gives a new perspective. So it's like they didn't wear this stuff because that was all that there was, even though that's a component, but also because they thought it looked good back then.
But can we talk about like let's rag on Gen Z? Like y'all acting like you reinventing something. Like that's the problem when you don't look through an old yearbook and give like credence and give like acknowledgement and homage to like they used to do this back in the day. They act like they came up with
everything.
I'm just like, bro, like it's not like big glasses, long short. We've been there, done that.
Right.
But you got to be self-aware to just even know. But Devin, what we talking about today, bro? What we talking about?
We are talking about the pillars of unhappy marriages. But before we talk about that, I want to shout out our upcoming newest segment, Listener Letters. If you have a question, you have something you want us to talk about, make sure to email us at codeyellowpodcast@gmail.com. Anyway, dun, dun, dun. So yes, the 4 pillars of unhappy marriages. We're doing it in 2 parts. Today we're talking about I'll call it level 1 of the 4 pillars. So this concept was coined by Dr. Gottman, very influential clinical psychologist who talks about the success of marriages and studies the trends and what he's observed over the years that show marriages can be successful or unsuccessful. Because when you get enough data, you can start predicting based off of factors, right? So he calls out these 4, called the 4 horsemen, 4 pillars of unhappy marriage: criticism, defensiveness, and contempt and stonewalling. So one is kind of a subset of the other, but today we're talking about the first 2 pillars that I call level 1, criticism and defensiveness. Let's get into it.
What are they in order? Which one comes first? Or are they just kind of...
They're together as like he lists the 4, but if you kind of like think about them, criticism is like the precursor to contempt, right? And then defensiveness is like the baby brother of stonewalling, right? So we can even...
And I even kind of looked at criticism, like if there's criticism relationship, you can become... Criticism that wasn't meant to be criticism could create defensiveness. And depending on the perspective in your defense, you look at it as criticism.
Yeah.
So I can see why they are like coupled together.
Yeah, because criticism is coming from the giver of said criticism. And the defensiveness is the response, right? So if you think Newton's 3rd law, like with every action, with every force, is an equal and opposite, right? So given that these 2 things kind of match each other in force, it's no like hard leap to make that together the criticism and defensiveness kind of create this downward spiral that kind of spins relationships out of control. So let's dive into just like, because I mean, there's so many ways to talk about this, and I don't want to just rip the Velcro off. Let's kind of ease into it. You know?
I would love to discuss like the healthy side of it, because like you said, like there's like the opposition. What does criticism look like when it's healthy? Because obviously, as married people, we want to be able to constructively tell our partners, "Hey, like you're doing this right." Or you're doing this wrong, or, you know, I don't like this. You want to be able to give like constructive like criticism to how the best way for someone to love you is. But then at what point or I guess what does that look like when you go from, is it the frequency of it? Like maybe critiquing someone, like your partner, too much? Or is it the way you critique it? Like what becomes unhealthy about it?
So one thing Davians and I like to keep in mind when we are having intellectual debate or trying to, you know, push through a challenge is we say, you know, is this productive? So criticism and, you know, feedback, whatever you want to call it, it's going to come up, and it's necessary. But in all the things you just said, whether it's frequency, whether it's method, tone, all those things, it just depends on the person receiving and what they require. Is it productive? So if your you know, spouse is critiquing something frequently, okay, well, if they're having to do it so much and there hasn't been a change, is it more so, let's look at why they're doing it so much. Is it why they're critiquing it so much? Is it because there isn't a change on the other end? Or are they being reasonable? Are they actually, you know, like, is there space is it a reasonable critique? You know, just, it's so many things, like you said, you could look at, but I think, is it productive to bring this up? Is it productive how I'm bringing it up? Am I presenting a solution so that I can mitigate defensiveness? Now, you could have done all of that and the receiver could still be defensive. So that's also something else to look at, right? Like the accountability in it all. Or, you know, for myself, if I get defensive, I try to take the time. Like if Zavians notices, okay, well, Jasmine, you're being defensive, I might be feeling like, well, yeah, I should be, because what you're saying, I'm not feeling that. But I try to be reflective and say, okay, in my defensiveness, because you may feel like you're valid, and sometimes you may be able to question, you know, challenge yourself, like, okay, I don't need to be defensive. Or I may say, you know what, how I'm feeling is valid. Can I find a different way, or let me be more clear in expressing to Zav why I feel defensive? So just really, you know, trying to chip away at the block of it all, and like, how can we be the most productive in communicating through this? Because feedback is necessary, and you may feel defensive about it. But try to like we've talked about those emotional wheels before. So I don't know where defensiveness falls on it, if it does at all. But I think in all emotions, really getting to the root of, so if I'm feeling defensive, what is that really about? And maybe I'm triggered by something else based on the feedback that made me feel, you know, I'm feeling a way about it, and it's loosely connected. Or maybe if I really take the time to look at, you know what, Zav's feedback is valid, you know, let me be more accountable. So I say all that to say that I do see how they're congruent, you know, criticism and defensiveness, but in it all, the meeting in the middle point is how productive is the communication when you're on either end of it.
Right. So let's add just a little bit of context or whatever to this. So by bringing in the formal definitions that, you know, from Oxford, criticism. The expression of disapproval of someone or something based on perceived faults or mistakes. And then we have defensiveness, which is the quality of being anxious to challenge or avoid criticism. So, yes, productive. Like, you have to know if your conversation is productive. But now when it comes to like what constitutes a criticism, it's both on the receiver's end and the giver's end that kind of like we can define, like, is this a criticism or not?
Right.
Right? Because a criticism is pointing out something that should that somebody believes should change because it's wrong, right? What if there was a way of communicating that in a different way that the defensive person doesn't feel as attacked by it? But then on the other side, if someone has I'm just going to say competency wound or a perfection wound, then anything that's different from what they're currently doing now, that's being suggested to them, can come off as
absolutely
a critique. And now that triggers a defensiveness, you know? So I'll be the first to say that out of the two, my pain point would have been the defensive one. And I've grown a lot. But it's because, you know, of the drive to kind of get everything just right. It's like, what do you mean I'm not doing this right? I tried so hard, you know?
Yeah.
So if you guys don't mind, what's your default weak point between these two?
Mine is criticism.
Mine is defensive.
Mine is criticism.
It's crazy. Like everybody has like a different path, right? Everybody has a different thing, you know, that like they're gonna carry is gonna kind of fall one way or another. So tell us about yours.
Yeah. Well, we all know. Not we all know, but I think for me, and like Taj and I, we are not embarrassed. Like we go to seasonally, we'll go to couples counseling with our therapist, and like we talk about these things. And I think like one of my pain points for criticism is I grew up Haitian in like a Haitian household where I wasn't like affirmed a lot, and then like correction was putting me down. And so I am extremely sensitive to like feeling like somebody's like putting me down. It makes me feel like I'm like a little girl again. And I'm like, listen, like don't. So like the criticism for me, like criticism, when I feel like I'm being critiqued, that's when the defensiveness rises up. But the first thing is the criticism, because if I feel like, even if, and obviously I'm not perfect, like even when Taj is valid, like my first line of defense when he's like, obviously Taj is so kind, and he's never, like, I always pride him in saying like he's never raised his voice at me. He never, like, he's not someone that's like, well, you need it. He'll be like, babe, even when he comes like so sweetly, I'm still like, what do you mean by that? Like, because like my first thing is like, I feel like he's like about to like put me down. And then I'm like, okay, I don't want to have this conversation. But it's a lot of like self-evaluation, because it's a me thing. It's not even like he could do it's just like Jasmine saying, he could approach me just fine. But as soon as I feel like he's about to like put me down or hurt my feelings, I'm like, I don't like that.
The wall goes up.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and you mentioned about perfectionism, and so because I've struggled with that in my upbringing in the past, with criticism I can be defensive. I get defensive when I receive criticism, depending on what it is.
I think for me, I hold myself to a high standard. So then I also hold Jasmine to a high standard, and sometimes that standard can be seemingly unrealistic. Because I'm just like, oh yeah, like this is like, and I, kind of like what the definition said, what I think is normal, it might not be normal to everyone else or whatnot. So, but yeah, I think I hold Jasmine I hold the people in my life to a very high standard because of the standard that I hold myself, as far as like almost everything. So I'm like, wait, why is this not like this? Or, why are we doing it like this? Or like, what made you think that or whatnot? Like I do, it is criticism, right? But sometimes I'm just like, but then like it can turn into like sarcasm, because I'm like, wait, why did you think that or whatnot? And
like,
so,
how do we get here?
Like, how do we get here? Like, how did your brain, but like Jasmine's brain, and married people who've been married for years and years and years and years, like 50, 60 years, will say like, I'm still learning my wife or whatnot, because like people change, and whatnot. But she always had to remind me like people think differently, and so on and so forth. And yeah, that's just what it is.
Mm-hmm. Do you ever find yourself, Zav, in like a position of defensiveness?
Yeah.
You know what's so interesting? Like, and I kind of thought initially about them as kind of like, oh, not necessarily one or the other, but more one or the other. But they're really kind of two sides of the same coin, right? Because the defensiveness comes from a built-in internal criticizer. Because what would you have to be defensive about if you weren't hyper-criticized or hyper-criticizing yourself, right? So, because if you're like, okay, I've put all these measures to be perfect, as it were, or like to not mess up. So now somebody's saying I messed up. Why do you think I messed up? So defensiveness, because you've already critiqued yourself to this smaller state, right? So how do we break free of that cycle?
I think just especially within our marriages, I think like having a conversation like more often. I like seeing on Instagram like the couples are like, we have our weekly meeting or whatnot. Like Jasmine and I have not arrived as of yet to have weekly meetings, but I think that is because you can be defensive about anything or whatnot. I think that my answer is communicating, having weekly meetings, and like putting that on the table. Like, hey, was there a time today or a moment where you felt defensive or where you felt like I criticized you beyond belief, like that was unreasonable or whatnot? So I'm saying that, but what also is bad on my end, bad, right? Good, bad, like those words, whatever. What's interesting on my end is just like, most time when a lot of stuff happens, like I push it to the back of my mind. I'm just like, yeah, that happened. Yeah, that was like really annoying. And then why you wait?
I'm listening.
Oh, okay. Before I so really interrupted. Like
himself, an internal criticizer. Just saying.
But I'll be like, okay, yeah, this was da 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 da. But I won't feel like it's significant. Like Jasmine's like, well, why didn't you mention that point? I was like, well, it's like they're bigger fish to fry. That's not a big deal. Like I will be okay or whatnot. But I'm saying that like, yeah, have communication and talk about, this week, you said this on Wednesday and this made me feel this type of way. But half the time I forget, like, yeah, that most times.
No, I'm saying it's forgetting the same. And you start off as saying you put it on the back burner. That's not forgetting. That's you saving it for later.
Well, yeah, I didn't mean to say back burner.
Yeah. What I'm saying, do you forget or is it going to come up later? That means you didn't forget. Yeah.
Nah, I forget.
Okay.
Yeah, mostly.
Things on the back burner can still burn. You know what I'm
saying?
saying?
For sure.
Yeah.
That was a bar.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there was something else that I thought about, which, because they're not to derail from even like that specific part, but I know that there's like language and how you say things. The cliche is not just what you say, it's how you say it. Is really true. If you talk to any therapist and you want new language for how to approach different conversations and things like that, using I statements versus you statements. I mean, like, because that kind of pulls the statement off of your receiver and puts it on you as a giver. So then it's like, it gives them a new perspective to look at it versus like, oh, you're doing this, you're doing that, versus like, I feel this way when this happens. Mm-hmm. Even if they've done it, even if you think is that like this, when there are dishes in the sink after I come home from a long day of work, especially knowing that I left the sink clean this morning, I feel tired or worn out by seeing it. That's not a different conversation from you never wash dishes and you all you do is eat and you don't wash nothing.
And what you been doing all day? Because why the dishes still in there and I'm coming home and da da da. Yeah. That was not a direct quote from any experience. I know.
Yeah, no. And I think one of the things like I think about like even just again in like the sessions like Taj and I have had with our therapist. I remember there was one time, I'm not embarrassed to say, there's this one time we were talking about there was like a situation with the Taj's car, and then I was like annoyed that he wasn't getting to it quickly enough, and then I was like I'll go do it and whatever. And so I felt like I did the right thing because I'm like, oh, like whatever. And I remember like our therapist, like she checked me because she was like, whose car was it? Like, do you guys share a car? And she's like if it's his car and he's taking his time to get to it, like, why did you feel? And so the reason why I brought that up is because I think that sometimes we, as partners, like we want to, especially the perfectionists or like the ones we want to fix certain things. And honestly, they're not even our responsibility to take on. And sometimes we have stress about something that like, why are you even worried about that? Right. It's not yours to worry about. It's not your situation. So that's something like I have been working on in our marriage, because sometimes it's like, I'm bothered or annoyed, or I'm like, oh, why is this like on my plate? And that was what it was about. It was like, oh, like I don't want like more things on my plate. And she was like, you put it on your plate. Yeah. Like he was getting to it. You put it on your plate because you needed it done when you wanted it done. And he was going to get to it. You just like, you made your own problem. She didn't say it like that. She's so lovely. Right. But it was like, that's how I internalized. I was like, dang. And I apologized because I was like, it's true. Like why I'm critiquing something that it's none of my business, or not none of my business, but you get it. Like I'm making it my business. Yeah. So sometimes, just don't make things your problem, or don't make things a problem that are not a problem. Sometimes like your spouse is just going to do things at a different timeline, a different way than you. And it like that was actually you when I got married. That Me? Was yes, ma'am, my girl. When I got married, I asked you. I was like, "What advice like would you like to give?" And you said, "Just because they don't do it your way, doesn't mean they're doing it wrong." And I promise you, it's in my head all the time. The person that shared with me, I say, stuck with me. Because it's so true. Like you, especially when you get married in like your 30s, like you're so used to living life alone, doing your own thing, that you have this way of doing things. And just because they fold different and whatever, it does not mean that they're doing it wrong. It's just different. And sometimes we make and critique and, have issues with things that they're not wrong. It's just different. Yeah. And we need to like self-evaluate to not be causing problems in your marriage that really are not a problem.
Right. Yeah.
It was so funny. I saw something on Instagram and it was like couples had the same fights, like all the time.
The same 3 fights.
The same 3 fights.
Yeah.
Y'all, I sent you that video. Yeah. And I was just like, this is so true.
Do you remember what they were or any of them?
It's in your marriage.
Yeah, what's in your marriage?
It's like in your marriage, there's like
it's the same 3 things.
Of the same 3 things.
I think you did send it to me too. Okay, gotcha.
And what was like the tie-in for the individual? Was it just like make sure you sit down,
like communicate?
It was just like stop. I think from what I remember, it was just like you're picking at like little things, but like what you really need to get to is like the root of what the problem is, because you're fighting about like I'm so tired, I'm this, but what you really, it's like I don't feel valued. I feel like I'm always doing the same thing,
and being able to identify like, wait, this is fight number 3.
Yeah,
exactly. Just being able to like, okay, helping around the house, helping with the children.
Yeah, whatever your 3 are. Yeah.
This is number 3. Can we go to what do we need to do when we talk about number 3? And I was like, that's good.
Yeah, very
so good.
I had so many thoughts I wanted to share, like while we were this has been going on. Well, one of the things, I'll go backwards. The most recent I just had, like I feel like Zav and I had a breakthrough recently, where hopefully you don't mind me sharing, is a fight that I feel like a disagreement we've had multiple times is where Zav needs me to be decisive about something, like usually a decision that impacts our family, like a large purchase or something that we need. And I'm dragging my feet on it perceivably. And so we finally got to the bottom of how we feel in those situations. So for him, what I heard him say was, when you do that, it makes me feel that it's not important to you. I'm coming to you with a sense of urgency, or, I'm trying to take care of something that has to do with our family, and you're not making any moves. But on mine, I'm like, I am making moves. I've actually been doing a lot of research. I'm comparing prices. I'm trying to make the best decision. And, I shared with him like kind of where my paralysis is coming from and just kind of some other things. So I felt that we made a breakthrough when, I was able to, well, one, really understand how he was feeling. And even though I was like, what? That's how that made you feel? But instead of getting defensive in how it made him feel, because because I'm a person that's like, I'm not doing something out of malice. My intention isn't this or that. I would get defensive that my actions made you feel a certain way. Not even so much like the critique, but that you felt negatively about an action or a lack thereof. And so instead I push past not so much how it made you feel, because that's important, but staying focused on the actual issue, which is you feeling that it's not important to me when you come to me. So I don't want you to feel that way. So really, instead of, well, why do you feel that way? Jonathan, well, what are you doing or not doing that is leading to that? And
I can like alleviate the burden. Like if you have paralysis, like I don't have paralysis in that area. Just like give it to me, relinquish. I said, I love that you have lists and you've researched, but like it don't amount to a hill of beans if we like
don't pull the trigger.
Don't pull the trigger on. I was like, I'm trigger happy.
I'm like, I don't want to make the wrong. I'm like, I don't want to pick the wrong thing, or I don't want to. So sometimes I'll just like, I'll get back to it, or I'll feel like I have more time. It's not. And so even if we could have more time, because I'm like, we make our own timeline. Zav, one thing I do appreciate about him, especially if it has something to do with our family, he's on top of it. He's not putting it off. And so his thing is like, hey, I'm just trying to take care of this, get this thing done. And so, but that really put something in perspective to me. So I'm like, wow, I was thinking this is a small item or small thing. The last thing I want you to do is to feel like it's not important when you saying, you want to include me on a decision. So that definitely gave me perspective. And hopefully I can remember the other things before we have to end this episode.
In like 5 seconds.
Right.
In like 5 seconds. So 5, 4. So, I mean, there's so much more to dig into with defensiveness and criticism and like how we relate to each other and how we talk about different issues that you might have. And the goal is always to find common ground, always to find something that you both can agree on, and then you step forward from there. So,
but what if you can't agree? Like, what if you can't agree?
If you have not agreed, you have not tried hard enough. Because there's always something, even if you can agree on the phrasing or like the actual like impact of what happened. If you say, if I say, I don't like that you did this, if you can at least agree that I don't like that this happened, then that's an agreement. And then you move forward from there.
That's good.
Because now you can talk the same language. If you have not agreed, you have not tried hard enough.
I like that. That's good.
Yeah. So I'm going to have to leave some stuff on the table for this one. But if you want us to talk about it again, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. And leave us a little comment letting us know what you liked and didn't like. And, give your own critique so we can defend ourselves appropriately.
Right.
Anyway, thanks for sharing. Thanks for coming. And as always, heal responsibly. See you next time.
Peace.